Imagine waking up tomorrow with no paycheck, no unemployment benefits, no savings account, and absolutely no clue how you're paying rent. Sounds like the beginning of a nightmare, right? Well, for millions of Americans in the late 1800s and during the Great Depression, that wasn't a nightmare. It was just Tuesday. And somehow, people still found ways to survive. Some even built entire businesses from things most of us would walk right past today. Let's start with some of the wildest forgotten side hustles in American history. Number 1. Sewing and piecework from home. And the number one forgotten side hustle wasn't flashy, it wasn't illegal, it wasn't exciting, but it may have helped more families than any other entry on this list. For generations, women earned money by completing garment work from home. Factories supplied unfinished clothing pieces. Women stitched seams, attached buttons, rolled cigars, and completed detailed work from their kitchens and living rooms. Around 1900, an estimated 250,000 women in New York City alone participated in home-based garment work. Entire families often helped. Children removed loose threads, grandparents assisted with finishing touches. Everyone worked together to meet deadlines. The pay wasn't great, but for millions of women, it was the only available source of income that allowed them to stay home and care for their families. Long before the phrase "work from home" existed, these women were already doing it, and they were doing it out of necessity. Number 2. Raising chickens and selling eggs. This one sounds simple, but it quietly gave generations of women financial independence. For hundreds of years, women managed backyard chicken flocks and sold the eggs. The money earned became known as egg money. And it wasn't pocket change, it paid for groceries, clothing, medicine, school supplies, and household expenses. Around 1900, a hen produced roughly 80 to 100 eggs each year. A flock of 30 chickens provided a steady stream of income week after week. Unlike farming, egg production wasn't heavily dependent on weather. Unlike factory jobs, it didn't require leaving home. Then, industrial egg farms arrived. Large-scale production pushed prices down, making small flocks less competitive. Zoning laws also restricted backyard chickens in many areas. One of America's oldest side hustles slowly disappeared. Number 3. Selling homemade liquor during Prohibition. Here's where things got really wild. When Prohibition started in 1920, the government banned alcohol sales. Americans responded with a collective shrug and kept drinking anyway. The result? One of the biggest underground economies in American history. Experts estimate illegal alcohol sales generated between $3 and $5 billion annually during Prohibition. That's billions, with a B. And it wasn't just gangsters making money. Farmers made homemade cider, families brewed beer in basements, immigrants produced wine at home and quietly sold extra bottles to neighbors. Meanwhile, speakeasies popped up everywhere. By 1927, New York City alone reportedly had around 30,000 speakeasies. Bartenders, delivery drivers, musicians, lookouts, and business owners all earned money through the hidden alcohol economy. History proved something simple. If millions of people want a product, banning it doesn't magically erase demand. Number 4. Collecting and selling scrap metal. Long before modern recycling companies existed, ordinary people were making money from discarded metal. Old pots, broken tools, scrap wire, rusty machine parts. If it contained metal, somebody would buy it. During the early 1900s, junk dealers paid collectors by weight and resold the material to foundries and steel mills. Children searched vacant lots. Older workers pushed carts through alleys. Entire families joined the hunt. Then came the Great Depression. When jobs disappeared, scrap collecting became a lifeline. And during World War II, demand exploded. Metal prices soared, and some scrap dealers earned more than factory workers. The recycling industry eventually became dominated by large corporations. But for decades, It was one of the easiest businesses to enter. All you needed was determination and a good eye for opportunity. Number 5. Fortune-telling and spiritualism. After the Civil War, millions of Americans were grieving lost family members. People wanted answers, comfort, and hope. That's where fortune-tellers, mediums, and spiritualists stepped in. By some estimates, around 11 million Americans visited spiritualists during the 1870s. That's nearly 1 out of every 4 people alive at the time. Many of the most successful fortune-tellers were women, and unlike most professions back then, this was one field where women could actually earn more than men. Popular mediums charged anywhere from $1 to $5 per session in the 1880s. Some saw a dozen clients every day. Others toured the country giving lectures and filling theaters. Imagine becoming a celebrity because ghosts supposedly had your phone number. Cities eventually passed laws restricting fortune-telling, but the business never truly disappeared. It simply moved behind closed doors, where it still survives today. Number 6. Cutting and selling firewood. Before natural gas and central heating became common, staying warm wasn't optional. Neither was buying firewood. That made wood cutting one of the most dependable ways to earn money in rural America. A person needed little more than an axe, a saw, and a wagon. Families worked together to cut trees, split logs, stack wood, and deliver it to customers. A cord of hardwood could sell for between $3 and $6 in the early 1900s. The income became especially important during winter when farm work slowed down. Every member of the family helped. Parents cut the trees. Kids split and stacked the wood. Everybody pitched in. As modern heating systems spread across America, demand dropped dramatically. What was once a vital industry slowly became something people mostly do for camping trips and backyard fire pits. But for generations of Americans, a pile of firewood wasn't just fuel. It was winter income, financial security, and sometimes the difference between getting by and going hungry. Number 7. Midwives and community healers. Before hospitals became common, most Americans relied on local healers. In many communities, especially rural areas, midwives delivered babies, treated illnesses, and provided healthcare advice. For countless families, the local midwife was basically the entire healthcare system. In the early 1900s, roughly half of all babies born in America were delivered by midwives. Many charged between $2 and $5 per birth, while doctors charged much more. And payment wasn't always cash. Some accepted chickens, flour, vegetables, or help around the farm. Talk about flexible payment plans. Their knowledge was passed down through generations and covered everything from childbirth to childhood illnesses. As medical licensing laws expanded, many midwives were pushed out of practice, despite serving communities successfully for decades. Number 8. Selling patent medicines. Before modern drugstores existed, America was full of traveling medicine salesmen, and these guys were basically part entrepreneur, part magician, and part actor. They traveled from town to town selling miracle cures that supposedly fixed everything from headaches to baldness. Most of these products contained alcohol, opium, cocaine, herbs, or some combination that would definitely get a doctor's attention today. But the real product wasn't the medicine. It was the show. Salesmen used music, comedy, magic tricks, and dramatic testimonials to draw crowds. A talented medicine seller could make $50 in a single evening at a county fair. At a time when factory workers earned around $10 a week, that was serious money. Eventually, government regulations cracked down on the industry, but these traveling hustlers helped lay the foundation for modern pharmaceutical marketing. Number 9. Shining shoes. Today, most people wear sneakers. 100 years ago, polished leather shoes were practically mandatory. That created a huge opportunity. All someone needed was a shoe shine box, polish, rags, and a willingness to work. From the 1880s through the 1960s, shoe shiners could be found outside train stations, office buildings, and busy street corners in nearly every American city. Customers paid a nickel or dime for a shine. A busy shoe shiner in places like New York's Grand Central Terminal could earn $5 or $6 a day in tips during the 1940s. That was respectable money. The shoe shine stand also became an unofficial information center. Businessmen sat down, relaxed, and talked freely while getting their shoes polished. The shiners often learned who was making deals, who was hiring, and where money was moving. Not bad for a job that started with a rag and a brush. Number 10. Trapping and selling fur. Long after the famous frontier fur traders disappeared, ordinary Americans were still making money from trapping animals. Throughout the 1800s and well into the 1900s, people across the Midwest and South spent winters running trap lines. Muskrats, raccoons, mink, and beavers were the main targets. A high-quality muskrat pelt could bring in anywhere from 50 cents to $1 during the 1930s. That may not sound like much today, but back then, it could make a real difference. Many farm kids checked traps before school and again after class. Talk about having a side hustle before homework. A skilled trapper could collect dozens of pelts in a season and sell them to traveling fur buyers who drove from town to town. For some families, fur money meant the difference between keeping the farm and losing it. As synthetic materials became popular and suburban development spread, the fur trade slowly faded away. Number 11. Bootlegging whiskey. If there was ever a side hustle Americans refused to quit, this was it. Farmers discovered something simple a long time ago. A bushel of corn wasn't worth much. But turn that corn into whiskey? Now you're talking money. By the late 1700s, homemade whiskey was so important that people sometimes used it like currency. When the government tried taxing it in 1791, angry farmers launched what became known as the Whiskey Rebellion. The tradition continued for generations. Then, Prohibition arrived in the 1920s and accidentally turned moonshiners into entrepreneurs. A gallon of homemade liquor that cost cents to make could sell for several dollars. Drivers modified their cars to outrun federal agents on winding mountain roads. Believe it or not, those high-speed chases helped inspire what eventually became NASCAR. Not bad for a side hustle that started with corn and a stubborn refusal to follow the rules. And we're only halfway through the countdown. The next entries get even crazier, including underground economies, frontier hustles, and one money-making method that secretly fueled billions of dollars in illegal profits. Number 12. Selling blood and plasma. Desperate times create unusual side hustles. During the Great Depression and for decades afterward, many Americans earned quick cash by selling blood. Depending on the city and blood type, donors could earn between $5 and $25 per pint. Donation centers became common near poor neighborhoods, boarding houses, and soup kitchens. Some people donated so frequently that they became regular customers. Not exactly a loyalty program you'd brag about. By the 1970s, concerns about contaminated blood led to major changes, and paid whole blood donation largely disappeared. Today, plasma donation still exists and generates billions of dollars every year. What started as a survival strategy for struggling individuals eventually became a huge medical industry. Number 13. Running the numbers game. Long before state lotteries existed, many communities had their own version. It was called the numbers game. People picked a 3-digit number and placed tiny bets, sometimes only a penny. Local runners collected the bets, and winning numbers were often tied to publicly available statistics, like horse racing results. The system became especially popular in black neighborhoods, where access to banks, loans, and business opportunities was limited. By the 1930s, Harlem's numbers industry alone was generating roughly $20 million every year. Thousands of people earned income as runners, collectors, and organizers. One of the most successful operators was a woman known as Queenie, who used profits to support community projects and challenge corruption. The funny part? When governments later introduced state lotteries, they basically copied the same idea and called it legal. Number 14. Taking in laundry. For generations, washing other people's clothes was one of the most dependable ways women earned money from home. And trust me, this wasn't tossing a load into a machine and scrolling social media while you wait. This meant hauling water, boiling it over fires, scrubbing clothes by hand, rinsing them, drying them, and ironing everything with heavy metal irons heated on stoves. In the years after the Civil War, thousands of black women in the South built successful laundry businesses. In Atlanta during 1881, around 3,000 washerwomen organized a massive strike demanding fair pay. It became one of the largest labor protests in the South during that era. The work was exhausting, but it gave women something incredibly important: independence. They worked from home, set their own schedules, and answered to nobody. When washing machines became affordable during the 1950s, the profession faded away, almost overnight. Number 15. Harvesting and selling ice. Imagine running out of ice in July. Today you walk to the freezer. Back then, somebody had to cut that ice out of a frozen lake 6 months earlier. Before refrigerators became common, ice was incredibly valuable. During winter, workers in places like New England, upstate New York, and the Midwest cut huge blocks of ice from frozen lakes and ponds. The blocks were packed in sawdust and stored inside special ice houses where they could survive until summer. A farmer with access to a good pond could sometimes earn more money selling ice than growing crops. By 1880, the ice industry employed more than 90,000 people and shipped millions of tons across America and even overseas. The work was brutal. Imagine spending all day standing on a frozen lake swinging a saw while Mother Nature turns your mustache into an icicle. But it paid. Then refrigerators arrived, and within a few decades, one of America's biggest seasonal industries practically vanished. Number 16. Selling homemade food. Long before food trucks and social media food influencers, people built businesses straight from their kitchens. Women baked pies, fried chicken, tamales, cakes, and other homemade meals, then sold them door to door or on busy streets. In southern communities, black women carried homemade meals through neighborhoods. In Mexican-American communities, tamale vendors became local legends. A tamale might sell for 10 cents, a pie for 25. No website, no business loan, no fancy marketing. Just great food and neighbors telling other neighbors where to find it. Eventually, health regulations made it much harder for home cooks to operate. But for decades, this simple hustle helped countless families pay bills and survive tough times. And honestly, if somebody walked up offering homemade pie today, most of us would probably buy one too. Number 17. Hunting for wild ginseng. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains, families searched forests for something worth more than gold by weight in some markets: wild ginseng. The roots were highly prized in Asia, especially in China, and buyers paid serious money for them. By the 1870s, dried ginseng roots could bring in $3 to $5 per pound when many workers earned only about $1 a day. Entire families joined the hunt. Kids spotted the plants while adults carefully dug up the valuable roots. A successful season could help a family survive the entire winter. Number 18. Renting out spare rooms. Today people use apps to rent extra space. Back then, they just opened the front door. Around 1900, roughly 1 out of every 5 urban households took in boarders. A spare bedroom could become a reliable source of income. Widows, working families, and homeowners rented rooms to factory workers, teachers, traveling salesmen, and anyone needing a place to sleep. In the 1920s, a room in Pittsburgh might cost only $2 to $4 per week. The practice became so common that some homes were actually designed with separate entrances for tenants. Then, after World War II, zoning laws and suburban development slowly pushed the tradition out of existence. Number 19. Selling apples on street corners. When the stock market crashed in 1929, jobs disappeared almost overnight. But apples? Apples were everywhere. An apple shipping association had huge surpluses and came up with a simple idea: sell crates of apples on credit to unemployed workers. One crate cost $1.75 and contained about 60 apples. Sellers could then resell them for 5 cents each. Soon, thousands of people were standing on sidewalks across New York, trying to earn a living one apple at a time. Some made $2 or $3 a day. Others stood in freezing weather for hours and barely sold enough for dinner. Still, for many men who had lost everything, that little wooden crate represented something priceless: dignity. Number 20. The rag and bone business. Before recycling bins existed, people literally made money from trash. Workers pushed carts through city streets collecting old clothes, animal bones, scrap metal, and paper. What looked like junk to one person looked like payday to another. Textile factories bought worn-out cotton and wool rags and turned them into new fabric. Bones were sold to companies making glue and fertilizer. In New York during the 1890s, a skilled rag picker could earn about $1 a day, equivalent to roughly $28 today. Not exactly retire early money, but enough to help feed a family. Entire immigrant neighborhoods depended on this trade. Parents sorted materials at home, while kids helped collect them. By 1900, around 25,000 New Yorkers were earning income from other people's garbage. Talk about finding opportunity where nobody else was looking. Looking back at these forgotten side hustles, one thing becomes clear. The real story isn't about apples, moonshine, chickens, laundry, or scrap metal. It's about creativity. When jobs disappeared, people adapted. When opportunities vanished, they created new ones. They turned forests into income, kitchens into businesses, spare rooms into rental properties, and everyday skills into survival. Most of these opportunities didn't disappear because people stopped using them. Many were replaced by corporations, regulations, industrialization, or changing technology. But the mindset behind them never disappeared. The ability to look at a problem and find an opportunity. The willingness to work with whatever resources are available. The determination to keep moving forward when the system offers no easy answers. That's the real lesson hidden inside these forgotten American side hustles. And honestly, if history teaches us anything, it's that the most valuable skill isn't having the perfect job. It's knowing how to create value when nobody hands you one. If any of these forgotten hustles surprised you, let us know which one was the most shocking. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes the best ideas for the future are hiding in the past.